Welcome to Soundbreaker. On today's episode, we're talking to Adrian Norman, co-founder and CEO of Uniteverse. I'm pronouncing it right, Adrian, am
You are
I?
indeed Uniteverse, correct?
Yes. Thank you for joining us. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please give us a short introduction of yourself? Will be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So my name's
My pleasure.
Adrian Norman. I'm originally from Guernsey. I worked in finance for 30 years and have been in London for the last 12 years. And now I manage some artists through Orion Music Management Company. Three exciting artists, one electronic, one R&B, and one singer-songwriter. And then actually also literally a month ago launched an app, Uniteverse, which you just referred to, really to deal with sort of safe spaces and DE&I. So yeah, some exciting stuff. And they all kind of help each other. It's a bit of a sort of ecosystem in a way.
Amazing. Amazing. Can you, I want you to take us back. Obviously, you were in finance, which is, I wouldn't say a dangerous combination in finance and music, but it's just a perfect combination because you know how to control the money, you know how to watch for the money, you know how to look for it, which is amazing. And always in the music business, there's the finance side of it is missing in a lot of us. We might be great music exec, but when it comes to the money, you need that, and you have both, two hats in one, which is amazing. So, can you take us back in the days in your teenage years? Was music is something that you were always passionate about? It was just hidden there, and you never came out of it. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to announce it. I love music. This is what I want. This is what I want to pursue. Because coming from numbers to music, even though the combination is amazing, but still kind of a little bit far. So please take us back in history and bring us to the future.
So, they are two very different beasts, I must admit. And I guess sometimes the paycheck in finance would be more reliable, definitely. But I think I've always loved music since I can remember. I guess I never had instruments when we were younger, whilst I always wanted them. Probably sort of background at home, there wasn't an awful lot of excess income there. So, however, as I got older, my mum would give me the sort of check pocket money every now and then to go and buy a CD or a vinyl from the shop. And yeah, I think what I always loved about music was it was an escape. I think it was an expression. I think it, for every sort of mood, for every sort of memory. Obviously, I always remember my parents when I was younger listening to, in the school holidays, they had music playing all the time when they were doing the housework. And then I think probably as we sort of got older, I think also music was kind of exciting back then as well, in the sense that there were so many different genres. You had Top of the Pops. You got excited to watch it once a week, whilst it might not be readily available as it is now. There was something a bit more about it where it was more of an art form. There was videos, you went through sort of the makeup, the fashion, and so I think it was the production back then from when you were sort of a kid, black and white televisions were still a thing when I was a kid, right? So then all of a sudden you had
Yes.
colour. So I think it was sort of a real art back then, I said, more than just a musician in a way. And I think from there, obviously, as soon as I got sort of the age of a teenager, I probably much to my parents' despair, I would be in the pub at 14, you'd have a jukebox, or, then I'd be nightclubbing at 15, 16. And I think that's when you really realize that in these places you met friends, you made memories, you
Correct.
met, obviously we didn't have phones, so you would be speaking to people next to you, you would be dancing, there was no distraction, and people were smiling and
Nothing.
happy. It was a very different time. You kind of, look, things change and it's great. But I think so back then, yeah, my passion, it has always been since then. And I think, even now, the sort of memories when you hear a song that you heard back then, you can instantly empathize to or have those emotions. It takes you back. And so, yeah, so I mean, it's just always been there. I guess I never really did anything with it. Again, living on an island, getting into finance, there weren't many opportunities in Guernsey. You kind of fell into finance. Obviously, it did me proud, don't get me wrong. But then I think really when I moved to London 12 years ago with my job, it was like a second lease of life in a way, in the sense that obviously in London you can be at a different venue every night of the week, and even if you didn't necessarily like the band, you still liked them when you saw them live because of the experience and
Interesting.
everything there in a way as well. And I think so that really just stoked me again, and I kind of, was out gigging or out to gigs all the time. Caught up with loads of friends, networked, and that's how it kind of led to, sort of making that switch. But I think also with all of this, as you alluded to, there's a lot of transferable skills. I think sometimes when you're in the business world, which shouldn't be
Yes.
underestimated. If people
Yes.
want to jump ship or move career,
Yes.
I think you forget sometimes what you collect and what you know and what you do. And I think that really sort of helped as well, because a bit like you alluded to, artists don't always see themselves as a business, and in business you have to plan ahead. You have to be sort of a going
Correct.
concern, all these different things, and take those into
Yes.
account.
Yes, yes, yes. 100% on point. Definitely, Adrian. Can you tell us more about your journey from successful career in finance to pursuing your passion for music and artist management? And what were some of the pivotal moments or realization that led you to make that transition?
So I guess it was sort of I mean, obviously, look, I'm 48 now, right? So when I jumped ship 2 years ago, I was 46. You're getting older. But I think it was that bit, do I want to be doing this for the rest of my life? And if I don't make that switch, I am going to be doing that for the rest of my life. And everyone is different, but I just felt that because of the fact that I'd, had 3 decades or, 3.5 decades of enjoying music, meeting people, having some of the best friends, the best memories, being in London, having the second wind of life, and kind of succeeding, really growing a network, really understanding it, going to as many sort of networking events and conferences as I possibly could. I just felt that, look, whatever I've kind of done, I always throw myself into 100%. I'm a believer that if you're going to do it properly, or don't bother, so to speak. And we're all responsible for our own destiny. So I just, also looked at the artists that I was working with at the time, and I really believe in them and, their sort of passion, and what they're about, and their sort of art. Um,
Yeah.
and so I just thought it's now or never. Obviously, we just spent 2 years in the pandemic, and it's sort of in lockdown, and sort of every day was Groundhog Day anyway. But obviously, then I worked for a fantastic company at the time. The team were amazing, but again, you just realised that both things were sort of the same, and so decided to do it. And also, my father wasn't well at the time, and I just thought, you know what? I know that he would turn around to me and say, you follow you do what you want to do, follow your dream, and if it's where you want to go, you'd be silly not to give it a go, really. I if it all falls down, I quite happily work somewhere that you had to work to make it all up. So that's how it kind of proceeded, and it's been a great incline and experience ever since, and a great journey.
So pretty much for our listeners and viewers out there, Soundbreaker, follow your passion. It's never too late.
Yeah.
That's the
Oh
message
no,
I'm getting here.
I don't think it's ever too late. I think
Yes.
the only person that ever holds us back really is us. I mean, look, yeah,
Yes.
you might have
Correct. Well
family
said.
relying on you
Yeah.
financially, you might have other stuff, but I think, if you have belief, if you hustle. I mean, hustling, I think, is one of the most important things. Just don't take no for an answer. Don't give up. Persevere. And just remember that somebody else has probably done it. So if other people can do it and are doing it, you can do it too.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things, but again, I think you've also got to remember that the journey, as cheesy as it sounds, right, is where that fact that some of the worst and toughest times you'll go through will make you stronger and almost be the kind of success story, because it will make you.
Correct. 100%. I understand you face challenges with bullying and struggled to fit in the traditional education system, which really, don't get me started on that part of it. I think our education system worldwide is broken, definitely broken,
Agreed.
and it's old, very old.
Definitely.
Everything advanced. The only thing that didn't advance, the education system. You'll take a picture
Definitely.
from 1901 to right now, 2024. It's the same thing. It's the same picture. The same
Yeah,
picture.
heartbreaking. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, very. Sitting in like, I'm like, is this, it's like a mental jail.
Yeah.
The timing, the way you sit, the way school, kids don't like school anymore. Kids don't like school. They don't
No.
want to go to school. But
No.
anyhow, the interview is about you. So let me continue the question. And how have these experiences that education and bullying and all of that, how have these experiences shaped your journey, I would say, and perspective on life and work? And in what ways do you draw upon these experiences to fuel your drive and determination in the music industry.
So, it's interesting because, again, we won't dwell on that either or digress, but I think even the job application process is completely broken as well, right?
Correct.
You know,
Yes.
because people are all different. It's not all about qualifications. And I mean, on that note, look, I dropped out of school at 16. I don't have a lot of qualifications, therefore I get overlooked for a lot of positions, and my CV would fall through the net on loads of things because I can't tick the box about having a degree. So I think, yeah, actually, I probably don't sort of take a step back every now and then and give myself, sort of a pat on the back. But I think the bullying was probably the worst days of my life. I think, I've always had to work 10 times harder than everyone else because I don't have qualifications, because I did start in I think I was the youngest account manager for a private bank by the age of 21, and I was never taken seriously. I was still sort of baby faced and all these different things. And I think even now, even moving into music, there's a lot of egos because I worked in finance. Don't forget that I was still the one doing all the work, not getting paid the multi-millions. And people sort of look at me as if I don't deserve to be there. There's ageism as well, being older. It's almost like it should be just a young person's, and the people that go out all the time, sort of night clubbing into these gigs. I still do that and probably can party better than they can, by the way. So I think it's where, I think I've used fuel. I've used it all as fuel to the fire in a way. And I think it's kind of made me realize that, you shouldn't take no for an answer. You have to persevere, and you just have to work. I think hard work does pay off. And it's showing that sort of passion, but also telling people your story. I think there's a lot to be said for a lot of people out there who are successful have a story. Not everyone's been lucky, not everyone's been had it easy, and so actually, I think just not being scared to actually wear your put it on your sleeve sometimes and just say, look, I've had to go through this, and this is why I'm doing this, and we're doing it for this purpose, and show that almost belief and kind of spoon feed people. Because I think, we do live in a world that, as much as things are broken, people can see through that sometimes if you're prepared to share it with them. And, look, all the emails, especially in the music industry, the amount of people that are trying to reach out to you with the same thing: listen to my music, play my music, do this, I want this gig. Actually, it's refreshing every now and then just to get something which isn't about that. It's about telling them about you rather than just having an ask. And so I think there's a lot to be said for those sorts of things as well, just coming across as a fellow human being decently and respect.
Yes,
And
well
manners as
said.
well.
Um,
Please and thank you.
Very yes. What were some of your earliest experiences with music, such as learning to DJ on vinyl and attending festivals like Glastonbury? How have these experiences influenced your approach to music and artist management?
Do you know, so I love learning on vinyl. It was
Yes.
I love the fact that vinyl's come back so much now. Look, I know there's the sustainability issue, etc., but I think it's just nice to have that physical product. And yeah, it just turned about being at parties, after parties, or pre-parties, and sort of I think just having an ear for music, and but also just being out a lot. What the crowd were dancing to. What people liked. I think it's kind of also helped is, we are in a saturated time when it comes to music. We know how many tracks are uploaded to DSPs every week. And actually, I think
Every
having
day.
yeah, and having history of, everything's kind of in a circle, right? We see this in fashion.
Yes.
Denim comes back. And it's kind of the same with music. Garages come back, D&B's come back. And so if you kind of got, if you're a bit older, I actually think you lived through some of this. So you knew what it was about, and you
Yes.
knew the fusions, you knew how it worked, and some of the older school stuff that you can tell to, newer artists, younger artists, that they should listen to really give them some sort of, creative ideas, etc. as well. And I think, look back again, the festivals back then, you didn't have all the big production. I mean, when you look at festivals now, the amount of money that's spent on production rather than artist bookings, back then it was a lot simpler. I think you were probably still climbing under fences if you hadn't bought a ticket for some of these places, and they
Yes.
all felt a lot cheaper. However,
Yes.
I think there was something about the simplicity of it because you really were just there to listen to the music. Again, now, as great as technology can be, I've been at gigs where someone had an iPad in front of me recording the whole gig. And again, people aren't in that moment. So I think, Glastonbury back then was a completely different place. And it wasn't just about the production, it was about the music. And there was just more of a feeling of togetherness and community. And I think that kind of helps you nowadays as well really install that in other artists. and really helps with some of sort of the other things we try and do is you have knowledge of that. Um, and yeah, so I think it shaped me in lots of ways. I think I still now, I mean, I do DJ every now and then when I get the chance. But I think it's also to give me a full appreciation of music, where it's been, where it's going to, and all that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
A lot of sense. Absolutely.
And also
Really.
fashion very quickly. I think one thing that I think there should be more of is, back in, as we alluded to, when you had Top of the Pops, it was a lot more about fashion. And I think also these creative spaces of photographers, art, musicians, and fashion and all these things could work together a lot more sometimes. Why have you not got live music at more of these fashion shows or these sort of art exhibitions where actually they're all trying to do the same thing? And I've always thought this: if you've got an independent art musician or DJ who has
Yes.
up and coming photographer, an up and coming fashion designer, why don't they all work together? And if one succeeds, they kind of take the other one with them and become part of a really exciting team, I think.
Absolutely. I think four things that really with the music is fashion, art, and
Yep.
believe it or not, cooking, because cooking is art. To me, these three
Yes.
genres, if they're really part of the music and the music is part of them. Exactly, because they're all based on emotions. When you
Yes.
design, when you write music, when you paint, and when you cook, it's all based on experiences from the
Yep.
past, whether you were born here or whatever part of the world you were born. It's all attached to it. The dress, the music, the
Mm.
sounds, the taste, all of that, the
Yeah,
imagery, and
definitely.
all has to do with emotions, all with emotions, whether
Definitely.
it's
Listen.
sadness, happiness, all topic and culture. And culture is all attached to it. Food,
Yeah.
art, design, clothing, music, extremely important.
You hit on a very good one, actually, cooking. I think you're right. Listen, we all love food. Look, I love food a bit too much, probably.
Yes.
But actually, I think it's a very good one. Look, you're right. But it's the fusions of these things as well now, right? There's so,
Yes. Yeah.
the fusion of stuff, or even just the fact that, everyone travels so much more now, and then you can have food
Yeah.
which really gets someone's taste bud, which reminds them of home, or again brings back that memory like music does. No, that's a very, very good point, actually.
Yeah. And hey, and where big fan of technology, but certain thing
Mm.
I think AI used as a tool better than a replacement. I think in these
Yeah,
four
I think
things, I
you're
would say,
completely right. I think AI,
yeah,
I think people obviously get scared about AI and all this stuff. But actually AI, I think they should see it no more as an extremely powerful research tool and almost like speeding things up and making life
that's it.
easier, and
Yes,
and actually
yes,
helping you to discover more stuff and research more stuff and know
correct.
more stuff in
Yes,
a world which is almost saturated with music, with online. Actually, to have AI in your fingertips actually just makes much more simpler and gets the information to you a lot more quicker than you could ever do.
yeah, yes, absolutely. It's more of a speedy process to your vision and to your
Yep.
goal.
Yep.
How did you navigate the transition from the finance to the music industry, particularly the terms of networking and promotion? Because you were one end, you had your network and knowledge and how to do things, and you came into a different kind of arena. And can you share some of the strategies and the insight you found effective in building connections and promoting artists?
Yes. So I think one thing about London is, look, London's like a different country to the rest of the UK, look, for starters. But I think that it is also a hub of, everyone there trying to do the same thing. And there are a lot of conferences, there's a lot of networking opportunities. So I really threw myself into it. So I did some online courses, tried to attend everything I possibly could, be it an unsigned night, being an industry event. And I think it's really important to do that. I think, again, it can be tough at times. Does anyone really like networking? You don't necessarily, no one really wants to walk into a room with people they don't know and try and meet people. However, you can go to an event and meet one person that can really change things or that can open doors. So I think you just have to kind of throw yourself into it, take a deep breath, and go along. And I think, yeah, do a bit of research about cost, do a bit of research about the venue, see if there's reviews or see if there's anyone going. But I think they are really powerful. And there's so many now as well, I know. But I think, again, the other side is just social media. Use LinkedIn.
Yes.
If you're an artist,
Social media is
use,
very powerful.
I think it's
Very,
always best
yes.
for an artist to
Absolutely.
reach out to an artist. And I think, the power of them Instagramming someone, following someone, it's worth doing because you get to know their sound, you get to know what they like, and then yes, if it moves on to the artist team, it's more likely that you should then pass it on to your team as well to deal with. But I think it is just a case of reaching out. There are people that are going to answer you. There are people that aren't going to answer you. But it's a bit like general marketing, right? 10% of people will get back to you, and you generally tend to find that on reach outs as well. And so I think all the tools are there. It's just using them. And again, don't be scared to follow up. Listen, if you send an email to someone, the likelihood is that, I find you should probably only send emails to the music industry on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, right? They probably don't work Mondays and they're probably off Fridays. So there's those little kind of tips where, you know,
Yes,
don't be
yes.
scared to follow them up. I think there are times when, they are going to be busy in the summer, they're going to be at a festival. In the winter, they're going to be off. But, in those other clips, I think it's a case of, don't be scared a couple of weeks later to email them again in case they did miss one of the thousands of emails they probably get every day like the rest of us.
Yes. The challenges of the lockdown a couple of years ago and your father's illness seem to have played a significant role in your decision to pursue your dream in the music industry. How did these experiences shape your perspective and priorities, and what inspired you to take action?
So yeah, lockdown was a tough one for everyone, right? But I just felt that, there was a lot of making up to do, I guess, after 2 years of not being out and about. I think obviously my father's illness did as well, and I think probably I just sort of had enough time in lockdown to really think. And I think also, you have to adapt. I think if you can adapt during these times, that's a really important thing to do as well. I had also a lot of time. I was on my own for 2 years, more or less in the UK in lockdown, to reflect, to really sort of, think about stuff and put a plan together. And
Hmm.
then kind of go, would I have ever gone into finance at 16 if I hadn't have, got out of school, needed to get a job and all these things? Probably not. But at the same time, you can never undo the goodness it did. It gave me a platform, and it kind of, allowed me to go off to all these festivals and pay for these tickets to different things as well. So I guess it was really where, you know, um, I sort of thought you had to do it, you had to jump, had to give it a chance. It would be easier to go back, like any of these things. If you don't try it in the first place, you're never going to know. But it would be easier to go and get a job, in a fast food chain if I needed to, if it all fell through, and still say at least I tried, right?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Definitely 100%. Um, what inspired you to establish non for profit initiatives focused on grants and mental health? And how do you envision these initiatives making a positive impact? And what outcomes do you hope to achieve?
So I think I firstly wanted to try and give back a little bit. I think it's something that my father was and my parents both do a lot of, and I felt
Hmm.
that it was time to coming out of that whole corporate world, having more time in my hands, and also as we grow the artist business and the app, there'd be an avenue to help support as well. So you kind of almost have this ecosystem. So we can truly kind of give back a little bit as well. So, I think
Correct.
you tend to find this with a lot of the younger generation now, which I love, is that they care a bit more than sometimes the older generation does in a way
Mm.
of my own, my own peers.
Yes.
And actually, so they do want to see change. They
Yeah.
they do want to support it. And so we kind of felt, well, look, as the artists grow, they can be ambassadors if they want to be ambassadors, or we can sort of do things side by side. But it just felt like I had more time in my hands to really kind of do that. And I think, you know, it's that sort of thing, isn't it? Where if you can help just one person, then you kind of feel like you've succeeded and you've done some good. But it also was where you learn from people, and I think this is one of the exciting things about the music and artists and all that space is, you sort of learn from them. So actually learning from them, we can help shape some of these not-for-profits and these initiatives. People can kind of get on board.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's really just trying to make a bit of a difference. But again, having it there so that as we do sort of go forward, we can kind of fund it from some of the other projects we do. Um, you know, I think capitalism, well, again, we won't get started on this, is fundamentally flawed in its current form. So I
Yes.
think, our initiatives, if we can give a good percentage and give it exposure, and try and support others as we move up to also allow them to move up, then I think it's a win-win. And I don't know why more people aren't doing it.
Absolutely. We want to dive in a little bit more to your app that you developed, and would like you to provide us some insights into the development and goals of your app, and particularly in its focus on diversity, inclusion, and mental health support? And how do you see the technology, or how you see technology playing a role in addressing these important issues within the music community?
So yeah, the app's something I'm really excited about, and it came to me 2 years ago. The idea,
Yeah.
April 2 years ago, at IMS in Ibiza, International Music Summit. Basically, Beatport were there and offering an investment into tech that help make spaces safer. Now, as we know, and I could talk about this all day, by the way, that's easy if you're a festival of 180,000 people, you can have separate spaces, but it's not as easy if you're a venue of 50. However, I think you had to, in my mind, the way my mind works, if you give me a problem, I'll solve it for you. I had to take it one step further back. That actually, if you want to make spaces safer, you have to have people feeling safer before they've even gone out. And that involves letting them know what they're going out to find. And then a couple of other problems came up in my mind, and that is that, gone are the days when I was 16 going to London from Guernsey, that you had timeout and everything was in timeout. Now you have this saturation and overwhelming amount of information on Facebook, Resident Advisor, Eventbrite, all these different places. So you end up also missing a lot of events as well. So basically, firstly, what we do is we aggregate all the events in your area into this app so you can see what's going on. And then from there, through the use of AI, we match you to the events or venues which best represent you, or where you would have the best night, through getting to know you
Yes.
through the app and that knowledge bank. Um, and then it's also obviously all to do with diversity, etc. So we would know whether you're neurodiverse and the requirements that come with that. And as we know from the sound, it can sometimes just be there being cloth against a wall, so the sort of vibrations, etc. So there's all these different bits that actually we can remove tokenism. So it's all very well making spaces safer, but if you're not monitoring what's happening with venues or events, and there is no reporting back, there is no data that you're capturing, there's a lot of tokenism as well. For example, we know that a lot of disabled tickets will still go to the front, a chalk box at the front of a field where people can't see the stage. So it's about collecting all that data, people giving reviews, and us being able to do stuff. Again, police forces and councils, they can't make change unless they have the data. So if we're collecting this data in the hub
Yes.
from feedback, then we can actually present that to people. We can help be part of the solution and track stuff. But again, we listen. We know the stats, and we keep real stats up all day. We know that loneliness is as bad as smoking a packet, 15 cigarettes a day. We know that male suicide rates are 25%. There's so many different things that but we also know there's a lot of trends. We know that Gen Z now, 20% of them aren't drinking. And we know that over 40s are doing daytime clubbing a lot more. So there's all these different things for venues to keep up with, and they can't. So if we can bring all these things together and try and make some differences and connect people much better as a community, then I think we help really sort of, become part of the solution. But again, it really is about a movement and a community. And I think that's one of the most powerful things, because you can match consumers much better to their days and nights out, which also then means you can match brands much better in an enhanced way to them as well. And from there, it all becomes quite exciting, because it is about the data now to some degree.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. What have we're going to dive into a little bit of the challenges that you faced since transitioning from music, to the music industry, and how have you overcame these challenges, and how do you maintain resilience and and positivity in the face of adversity?
So, I think a lot of the things we've probably touched on some of them already, but is egos, is that kind of ageism, is that, kind of being made to feel like I don't really belong, don't really fit in, I shouldn't deserve that chance. And,
Yeah.
and so I think really I've just kind of, I guess, in my own sort of lived in my own little world in some of those times, and think, well, look, I believe in my artists. It can be a lonely place, right? It can be a very lonely and isolated place. I find even sometimes, because you've got people, and with all due respect to them, that's good for them, but they have been doing it for 10 years, and you don't want to tread on their toes. It's not about, any of that. It's just you wanting to do your thing and make your mark and, follow your dreams. So I guess it's really just to, never dwell on the no's. And there's a lot of no's,
No, never.
especially
Yes,
when, there's a lot more no's than giving good news. I think it's just trying to always stay positive. Again, because you do have artists, you kind of need to stay positive for them. You're kind of a friend,
absolutely.
a manager. You try to do more of a partnership. And look, if it's a no for them, it's also a no for you. You're only as successful as they are. So it really is trying to stay positive and just look for the next thing and just kind of reassure them and remind them of the things they really need to improve. Be honest and transparent and open about what might need to be improved. But also just going, well, look, this wasn't done overnight, and you can't look back at what someone did 10 years ago and how someone
No.
did it 20 years
Yes.
ago. You need to just, really stay consistent, persistent, and not let it get to you in a way, and just kind of, remove all the noise and just worry about yourself rather than what other people are doing. Because again,
Yeah,
there's too much comparison nowadays, and I think again, there's a lot of validation in numbers. Um, you know, and actually, people shouldn't worry about what number of streams they have on a certain DSP. It
correct.
should be about whether
Correct.
they're releasing music every few weeks. So the more of them there is in the world, be it on socials or online, the more chances there are of them being discovered, and the more people can hear their sound, and the more people want to collaborate and work with them.
Absolutely. What draws you to the indie music scene, and why you found it particularly exciting? And in your opinion, what sets indie music apart from mainstream genres? And
Do you know?
why it's important to give indie artists, sorry, a platform to be heard.
So again, we could chat about this all day probably because I get really excited
Correct.
about it, and I must remember not to talk too fast when I get excited. But it's just the music and the people. It's a melting pot. It's exciting. The creativity isn't reined in. It's the fusion. It's the ideas of all the music, and again, when we talk about music, I think we have to remember that there's gospel, there's jazz, there's so many different parts. And again, when you go to some of these sort of open mic nights or these jamming sessions, and you just see the raw talent and the people that are able to they're not a bedroom DJ, they're able to play all these different instruments, and you just get people together, and so it's a melting pot for me. It's the most exciting, and they haven't been told what they can or can't do. They can just go with the flow and do what they really love and are passionate about. And then I think on the top of that, it's just, it's the stories in the community. Everyone there is trying to do the same thing. They are all in it together. They are meeting people that they wouldn't have met if it wasn't through that music or that night out.
Hmm.
And it's their stories. I mean, it's sad, but a lot of the not sad, sorry, but it's in the sense that a lot of what they're writing about is because of the situation they've been through, because of their feelings, because of lived trauma, all these different things. It comes
Correct.
from somewhere. It
Yes.
comes from within
Yes.
them, their heart or their
Yes.
heads. And so I think
Yes.
for me, that just shows you something about them. And I think what's sad in the independent space is that you can hear music on Spotify or DSP, and you think, oh, that's good, but then you meet these people and you hear them sing it live, and it can blow you away. Whereas on
Correct.
DSP, it didn't stand out because there is that element of them being two completely different beasts in a way. And so
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it's really, you have to get in front of them. The more opportunities they have to share that, where people can see them, a bit like we've said, just even what they're wearing, be it the hair or the big hair, rather than getting a feel for who they are. So I think that's where, for me, it's just one of the most powerful things. And there's been people that have walked into rooms before, and
Well,
I've heard them sing. Their energy, you can just get their aura and their energy, and you just go, I need to get to know them. I need to work with them. We need to do something, because you can just tell there's something really special about them.
well, you know what? Maybe we should build our first live indie DSP platform.
I'm up for that. Listen, if it's going to change, let's
Yes.
do it. Oh, we love a bit of disruption.
Absolutely. Yes, we need it. We definitely need the music
We do,
business needs it. Yes,
definitely.
yes. We don't want to see, because that's where a lot of the legends, a lot of the great singers, great artists were born. They all started
Yeah,
as independent. Nobody get
yeah,
their bigger contract right away. Maybe there is the lucky few, but the majority is not the lucky few. They're
yeah,
gonna need to create their own luck, carve their own path in the music industry and business, which is full of a lot of the gatekeeping. We'll get to that in a second.
yeah.
Um, looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the future, both in terms of career and the music industry, and your initiatives related to their mental health, community building, and fintech? Because come from finance, fintech or fintech, and how do you hope to make a lasting impact on these areas?
So I guess it would be lovely to see my artists follow their, get to where they want to get to. I think that for me, the music management side of things is my favorite thing, actually, to be honest. I mean, it's hard work. I'm like a glorified BA sometimes, but actually it's the most exciting. And, I believe in them and they deserve it. And I think it is a journey. And I think that's one of the most exciting things is that journey. Um, and then I think, from the sort of my career in the music industry, I think, as I say, we want to give back, as well as we do. We
Yes.
want to support others and help others do well as well. This isn't just about me. This is about, sort of making a bit of an impact, being able to, speak openly and honestly like this, like we are now about things and having that voice. And just again, artists and lots of people are, they're so
Yeah.
busy worrying about creativity and their artistry that, sometimes it's just spelling stuff out for them or taking the time to do things and educate them or just tell them how simple things can be, rather than getting overwhelmed with trying to find stuff out. So I think that all, sort of in the mental health particularly, it would be nice to do more. There's so many great initiatives out there. I think there's a lot more that needs to be done. If you looked at
Yes.
mental health before the pandemic, the cost of a therapy session was a lot cheaper than it is now. That's supply and demand.
Oh, forget
I,
it.
I think there's
Yes.
so much more being spoken or shouted about it, but the resources aren't keeping up with the pace. Um, and then I think community building, there's so many great communities and stuff out there as well, but sometimes it's bringing them together a bit more. I think
Yes.
the power of people and the power of numbers and the power of community are all too obvious, especially in this day and age more than ever. Giving people that voice, I think, is more important than ever before in a way. People need to
Correct.
be
Correct.
heard and they should feel heard. And then I think on
Yes.
the fintech side, again, about the use of technology for the greater good, for the sort of social impact, and really trying to be a bit of a disruptor. There's a lot that can be disrupted. There's a lot of fat on the bones. There's a lot of things that can be changed. And again, I think all these things kind of come, hand in hand to some degree as well, right? If you have the
Correct.
community and you're doing something good on the fintech, the community are going to follow it, right? So you've already been able to disrupt a
Yes.
bit and make a bit of a change. And I think, so yeah, I mean, for me, it'd be, I mean, the dream would be to just make a change for people and to just have good feedback from it, and sort of, and I guess be able to give more good news and do more good things to people is sort of, the thing is, that sounds cliche as that sounds. I think we do live in times where there are enough people now, even like this platform, where there's enough out there that we can do it to get together and
Yes.
sort of, just chip away. As you say, Rome wasn't built in
Absolutely.
a day, right?
No, no, it was not. What is some of the common misconceptions people have about the music industry?
Um, so I would say, I would say it's that the most popular misconception. What can I think? So I think, yeah, you're right. It's saturated. There are gatekeepers, and as I've alluded to, there's a lot of egos. But I think what I have found is that there's still a lot of people in there that haven't lost faith, that
Yes.
do want to make a change. And I think, you're never, I think you can move into it at any age, from any background. I think it's
Yes.
just a case of you've got to find your way in. And there's lots of ways
Correct.
in. And even if that is, finding an artist that you believe in and you both working together from the start of that journey, even if it's, taking sort of a volunteer job at a festival and going and meeting people. There's a lot of ways in. It doesn't need to be with a major. It doesn't need to be the thing that, like you say, you get lucky overnight and do stuff. It's about your experience. And the more experience you have, the
Correct.
more you sort of
Yes.
hustle, the more you show,
Yes.
and you can add to that CV, the more chances you're going to have. So you're right, it is closed off, but I think, there's a lot of ways into it if you're prepared to just, roll your sleeves up and get mucked in a way, I think would be sort of my suggestion. And that's what I found. Did I think at the age of 46, 48, I'd be moving into it? Definitely not. But it's a case of, again, just throwing yourself in and sort of trying to, do as much as possible to get there.
Absolutely. Collaboration is an often key element in the music industry, in the music world. Could you share a memorable collaboration or story of someone that you work with and left an impact on you?
Probably been quite a few actually. So I was trying to think of this before,
Oh,
but I think probably a couple of them have actually probably been more to do with working with one of my artists, Thomas Irwin, in the sense that obviously he's, again, he'll reach out to people, and I guess he's been lucky enough to work with some artists, and producers that obviously were big from when I was younger. So actually, you were kind of listening to, and I think it was nice because actually, you almost kind of felt that they deserved to maybe have an ego or be a bit too big to work with the sort of little people or ordinary people, ordinary folks, so to speak.
yes.
Um, but actually, they were very humble. They actually wanted to support. They were actually excited, very positive. And it just kind of, gave you that sort of, hope and gave you that nice sort of, warm, buzzy feeling that actually, there were people there that wanted people to succeed. And actually, so I think those collaborations are probably the ones that stick out the most, is just knowing that your artist is getting their sort of, their help, their support, their feedback. And I think that was really sort of just nice, because I think it's also nice for them to see that anything is
Yes.
possible, that, it does pay off, that there are people out there. And it just reminds you all of why you're doing it sometimes, I think. Why they did it, why they were there once, and why they continue to do it, and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Very inspiring, Adrian. Very inspiring. Um, I'm sure, a lot of our listeners will find this very incredibly helpful and insightful and motivating and all the positive stuff that we could think of. Definitely one of the lighthearted interviews I had. Amazing, very positive. Um, Before we wrap it up, anything you want to add, you want to promote about the app, and whatever you're working on that's coming up in the next month or year or week, that
Yeah,
you
I
would
mean,
like
look,
to let our listeners, viewers know about, please?
yeah, so I think, look, obviously, we've got some exciting plans, I think, across all the sort
Yes.
of projects we're working on.
Yes.
And it's just trying to make as much impact. And yeah, I mean, the app will, that's got an exciting time. We launched in the UK. We launched in Ibiza in a couple of weeks' time, then kind of roll out to other parts of Europe and rest of the world at some point over the next year. And then through that, we're going to kind of do some road shows and activations, and hopefully get sort of indie artists to join us for that as well, to give them a platform. And yeah,
Yes.
just loads of sort of upgrades and future plans. So yeah, it's a really exciting time. Keep an eye out for us. And then yeah, hopefully we'll keep in touch with you as well and let you know as we move on. And
Yes.
but I
Absolutely.
think
Please.
it's where I would just say to everyone, honestly, I think, just persevere, even if you look, again, I did the artist management as a side hustle for a few years before I left the full-time job. It really is that case of sometimes you just need to do 2 or 3 things at the same time, and then
Yes.
work out in your gut or your mind when it works for you best to give up and go full-time with the other one. So yeah, no, just excited. I think it's yeah, no, it's great, and great to have
Please.
this opportunity and platform as well. Thank you.
Yes. Please feel free to mention the name of the app again for our listeners and viewers at Soundbreakers.
Yep. So it's Uniteverse.app. So the app's called Uniteverse, but you can find the website just
Yes.
Uniteverse.app. And yeah, it's probably the thing I've been most excited about for a little while. So it's nice to get out into the world after 2 years of development as well.
Yes, Uniteverse for our listeners and our viewers and our inspired listeners and viewers also who wants to take the same path as Adrian did. So this interview is amazingly inspiring and positive and very lighthearted. Absolutely great. And I definitely myself enjoyed it. And this, thank you for joining us today. And this
Thank you for having me.
concludes today. Absolutely, my pleasure. And this will conclude today's episode of Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned for new episodes. And see you soon. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
My pleasure. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.